Welcome to another episode of Attitude, where I explore topics of all interest and demonstrate that a positive attitude makes a difference. I'm Mary Arnott, your host. My guest today is Al Tucci. Many of you will certainly recognize Al. He has lived in Hopkinton for over 30 years, where he has been providing our community with music and music lessons to the delight of so many listeners and students. Before embarking on a music career, Al received his bachelor's degree from Northeastern University, an MBA from Nichols College, and attended the Papilloni School of Music. After working for many years in business at senior level positions in high technology, Al's focus turned to his music and teaching, which he has done for over 20 years. Some of you will remember the groups The Byrds, Sha Na Na, and Jay Giles. If you know Al, it's no surprise to you that he has shared the stage with these musicians and many more. Al is not only an experienced performer, he also arranges and composes. Furthermore, he and his group, Laurel Crossing, have played at the Athletes Village, entertaining thousands of Boston Marathon runners. With his illustrious talent and background, Al owns and is the principal guitar teacher at Studio 187 in Hopkinton, and is a member of the Hopkinton Chamber of Commerce. He teaches electric and acoustic guitar to people of all ages, all levels, and all genres of music. Some of his students have continued with their music and graduated from the Berklee School of Music, New York University, the University of Rhode Island, and the Hart School of Music in Connecticut. Although he dedicates much of his time to teaching, he is also writing a series of method and songbooks aimed at all levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and master. Welcome, Al, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Mary.
You're very welcome. You know, it's interesting, the guitar has a long history. 3,000 or 4,000 years it's been around, and it still is such a popular instrument today. What do you think makes it so popular for people wanting to learn it and play it?
Well, notwithstanding the fact that it's portable, the guitar transcends all ages and all genres of music. I teach students from as early as 6 years old to 60 years old, whether they want to learn rock, folk, jazz, country. Like I said, its popularity transcends all genres of music.
Well, you certainly have a love for it and the music you can play on it. But with all of that to choose from, not only the genres you can play on it, but the types of instruments, types of guitars themselves, if someone really wants to learn to play guitar, I mean, where do they start? How do they decide, gee, what type do I want to play? What music do I want to focus on? There's too much to choose from. How do you advise them to begin?
Well, I like to talk to my students before we start any program, what their interests are, what kind of music they listen to, what they would like to play, what artists they like to see on TV. So these are the questions that kind of narrow down the focus. But the short answer, Mary, is recommending a guitar that's going to make the student want to pick it up and play it. That's the bottom line.
With all of that in mind, I mean, there must be many different methods of teaching then, maybe depending on the guitar type itself or the music, or from your experience, do you have a favorite type of method that you like to use with students or approach that you take?
Well, let me answer that by saying that there are a lot of ways to learn how to play guitar. One is formal education through a school program. One is private lessons, which I teach. One, you may want to learn from a friend, okay? But typically, what transcends all those ways of learning is two methods. One, basically, you learn the traditional way. As we learned back in grade school, the 5 lines and 4 spaces of the staff, and basically translating that onto the fretboard of the guitar. The other way that seems to be familiar to a lot of young guitarists is tablature. And tablature could be likened to, when we were young, we had this thing called color by the numbers, where number 4 was yellow and number 7 was black. Well, similarly, they have the same thing in music, as teaching guitar. And basically, there are 6 lines that represent tablature, and the 6 lines are basically the 6 strings on the guitar. And then there are numbers placed on the strings, and that tells the aspiring guitarist what fret to play. Now, there are shortcomings to that particular method. If that's the only way you learn, okay, you're basically losing it compromises your ability to basically talk to other musicians. And it's going to take you longer to learn stuff, learn songs. So if there's a method that I teach, it's basically standard notation, and we go from there.
And really learning how to play from music.
And really learn how to play from music. In other words, you'll be able to pick up any songbook and know how to play it. Versus some student that only knows how to read tablature can only play tablature.
Yeah. I think when we were talking the other day, just to throw this in, not throw you off track, but we were talking the other day, and you said there are actually some musicians who can't read music at all, and yet...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can think of a couple of them. Slash from Guns N' Roses can't read music at all. Lindsey Buckingham can't read music at all. And you know, the thing is, wildly successful. But the thing is I see some of the interviews of these great guitarists, they always regret not having learned the right way.
A good advice to learn how to read the music, then.
Yeah.
With all the years that you've been teaching, I know you have a real love for the music and the students. Share some of your experiences with us. Have there been some that have been particularly satisfying or some that have been particularly challenging? Talk to us a little bit about your teaching experiences.
Well, my teaching experience is basically to teach a student how to teach themselves. Music, what makes it satisfying for me is music is what I love, business is what I've learned to do, performing is what I like, and teaching is what I live to do. And so basically, I love what I do and do what I love. And that's what makes it satisfying for me. The challenges is another story. My students, I work for my students. My students or their parents pay for the lessons. So they're paying for a service. I like to think that the service they get exceeds their expectations. However, and during the course of a lesson, we share equal expectations of what I expect of them and what they expect of me. But sometimes those expectations aren't met in my eyes. For one reason or another, a student may not be practicing. They may be revert back to an old bad habit. So the challenge for me is to, what I like to say, step on their shoes without messing up their shine.
Oh, a good way to put it.
And it's a good chance too to teach the young students a sense of accountability and responsibility.
So there must be some real keys to becoming a successful and accomplished musician and guitar player then. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you see as the really important things for someone to keep in mind if they want to become a really good guitar player?
Well, half of the key, Mary, lies in actually the title of your show, attitude. That's
nice little
part
plug.
That's part of the equation. The other part of the equation is aptitude. And I often heard that attitude plus aptitude equals altitude.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And so if you have the commitment, the determination, the motivation, and the perseverance, the attitude, additionally with the inclination to want to learn how to play guitar, then the sky is the limit. That's the altitude.
You know, it makes me think of something, and I know we haven't talked about this, but is there some time frame that you tell beginners to give themselves to find out, you know, if they really want to continue with it? In other words, not to give up, you know, after a couple of weeks if they try it, and do they get frustrated or...
Oh, a lot of students come in lessons with a different mindset. Some of them see the performing artists on TV and think that, geez, I can do that. Or they see their friend, I can do that. And then when they get into the studio, it's a different story. In other words, and other times, the students just excel. So, I mean, it depends on the students, you know, what their mindset is when they go in there. And proper expectations should be set. And again, practice is a big part of it. It's like anything. You got to work hard at it.
And I would imagine that age really comes into play too. Is there what's the earliest age you might recommend for someone to learn?
Well, I teach them as young as 6, and I love to teach that age because they're like sponges. There's no question at all. They just accept what I say, and they know what I expect, and so I love to teach the young students.
do you find that at that early age that they have the attention span to practice and to learn? And
you know, it's a question that every parent asks me. I have no problem keeping the attention of a young student for an hour. Now, there are exceptions. Some young students at 6 may not, you know, be ready, okay? And we determine that right, you know, quickly in the program. But for the most part, I love to teach them. They're like sponges, and they just do what I ask them to do, and I'm totally grateful for that.
But you do teach all ages. Do you find that their interest in the style of music, or, you know, the genre differs with the age and age group? Or?
Oh yeah. Although I have, yeah, certainly the younger students like, you know, the alternative music. Older students also like that music as well. So I mean, actually, the music, again, as I said earlier, transcends all ages. The tendency for younger students is to gravitate toward the electric guitar. It's almost, you can divide the age groups, college level and below, electric guitar, and above would be acoustic guitar. And a lot of them have both. So, you know, depending on what their interest and what they want to play.
So that's where you mentioned earlier on that you like to do the interviews up front and find out what their interests are, and so a lot of that comes out when you're talking to a prospective student as to.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'll ask them if they have a penchant for a certain type of music. I'll ask them to bring in a CD, and I'll be delighted to learn it for them and teach them the song that they want to learn, as long as they do what I give them to do.
One of the things, I know we, again, hadn't sort of planned this into our discussion, but it occurred to me when we were talking the other day, and since we have time to go into it a little bit, have you seen any negative or maybe positive influence of this Guitar Hero technology and the, or what's your perspective on that?
To me, Guitar Hero is instant gratification for those who don't want to learn how to play the guitar for real. I mean, it's certainly a boon for those people who manufacture the game, but it's nothing like playing and learning guitar the right way. And it's, as a matter of fact, Guitar Hero, interestingly enough, has never influenced any of my students wanting to take guitar. So I think maybe because they're used to the easy way of pressing buttons on a fretboard on a plastic guitar, maybe that's as far as they want to go. They have fun, and that's great. But it's I don't see that as popularizing guitar lessons.
I know another thing that you mentioned also is that you will sometimes maybe recommend to an older student or someone in their teens to have a different career, to have another career along with their music until they get started. Remember how we talked about maybe college and... Well,
this is probably going to blow holes in my profession, but the education they get from me in learning guitar will serve them very well throughout their whole life. My goal is to teach them a lifelong skill. I like to think of the guitar at an early age as a hobby or something wants to do, you know, and if they stick with it, it'll be rewarding for them for a lifetime. I do encourage my students, though, to get a good engineering or business degree, because it's a tough road to hoe if you want to focus in on music for a lifetime profession. Now, that's not to say I've got students that have graduated NYU with music degrees, Berkeley with music degrees. Okay, that's great. So they know what the score is, you know. And I've told them, like everybody else, get a good business or engineering degree, and then or teaching or whatever, and then you know, fall back on lessons with me. And like I said, it'll serve them very well.
Well, I can imagine that some students, or maybe most of your students, would have a love for music as well as a passion for some other profession, and that way they can, you know, be served well by both. Is there something when you're teaching a student that you may see this particular student really could and should maybe consider going on to something like NYU or the Berkeley School?
Oh,
is there some, you know, trigger in you that says, boy, this is a live wire here?
You know, the difference is, Mary, the difference is passion. and not everybody has the passion for the instrument. And that's the ingredient that basically suggests to me to maybe encourage a student to go into the get a music degree, because this is what they love to do. And I've had some great ones coming through my studio.
Speaking of passion, you mentioned to me what kind of turned your passion on about guitar and guitar music at an early age. You want to talk a little bit about that experience?
Well, we talked about popularity of the guitar, and there's a lot of indications that connote the popularity for the instrument. But for me, interestingly enough, I remember I was in high school, and it was a three-piece instrumental band: a guitar, a bass player, and a drummer. And it was like yesterday. And I watched these guys play, but it wasn't how well they played, but it was the magic that the music emoted throughout the audience that hooked me. I went home that night, I asked my mother, said, that's the kind of magic I want to make. And so I asked my mother if I could take guitar lessons.
And obviously she said yes?
And obviously she said yes.
So that triggers another little thought in my head then about the role that parents should play when they have children who want to learn to play guitar. I mean,
well, like I said, there are expectations up front. I certainly have expectations of my students, and to some degree to the parents as well. You know, I've got an hour with my students, so there's only so much that I can do. Then they know what to expect. And again, sometimes I have to read them the riot act about accountability and responsibility. But sure, the parents they're paying for the lessons, and so they, you know, it's they don't want to hound the student, but you know they know that it's costing them money. So you want to make sure. And I have no problem actually communicating that with the parent too, if a student is not performing to my expectations.
If a student, I mean, you recommend like a weekly lesson for about an hour?
My lessons are 1 hour a week, yes.
If somebody's really gun-ho, do they have an option to come for a couple hours a week?
Oh, I'd love to see that. But no, not normally. Not normally. No, 1 hour is they're challenged enough with the hour that they're with me and the assignments that I give them to do.
Yeah, you can pack a lot into an hour and then give them homework. Or
well,
how much time
don't like to think of it as homework.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean that. How much do you recommend they practice between lessons then?
Well, you know, Mary, I never give my students a time frame for practicing. They know what I expect. We go over the lesson before they leave the studio, so they know exactly what I expect them to do. And you know, they think it's uncanny of me for me to know that they haven't practiced, but it's pretty easy. If they sound like they did last week, they haven't practiced. So then I have to impart upon life's lessons again to, you know, that I'm a little bit disappointed and you're going to have to dig in a little bit harder.
And I would imagine that you are able to recommend then, based on their level, books and things that they would practice from.
Well, I have a song book and a method book that I teach from, and they get those from me. Yeah.
Now, is that one of, I know you're working on methods and songs, is that one of your own, or do you use a combination of?
Well, the song book is my own. The method book is a method that I have come to like. I've reviewed a lot of them, and this one has a little bit of everything in it, and where it falls short, that's where I come in.
All right. Well, we're almost about out of time. We've got a couple more minutes. In kind of summarizing, what do you want to leave the audience with, and both students and parents alike?
Well, there are no secrets in aspiring to be a great guitarist. It requires commitment, dedication, perseverance, motivation. And as we try to work in your theme here, attitude plus aptitude equals altitude. To paraphrase a quote that I heard long ago, some guitarists dream of being great while others wake up and work hard at it. So that's the lesson. There's no easy way, but I try to make it fun.
So like most things in life, you got to work at it, but certainly learning guitar, you can enjoy it as well.
And maybe parlay into a business like I have. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, your love for music, the guitar, and dedication really shows. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing your experience and your love of music today. I hope you will come back sometime, and maybe we can talk about the guitar more in depth, and maybe we explore it a little bit more. To my viewing audience, there is no doubt that guitar will continue to be a popular instrument. To those of you who are accomplished musicians like Al Tucci, or to those who want to learn to play an instrument, give some serious consideration to the guitar and see if it is your calling. If you want more information, you can contact Al directly. Watch for the information in the credits coming up. See you next time. I'm Mary Arnott signing out with attitude as we leave you with Al playing one of his original compositions.
I have no ambition in this world but one, and that is to be a fireman. The position may, in the eyes of some, appear to be a lowly one. But we who know the work which a fireman has to do believe his is a noble calling. Our proudest moment is to save lives. Under the impulse of such thoughts, the nobility of the occupation thrills us and stimulates us to deeds of daring. even of supreme sacrifice.
KTE 204, all units receiving Master Box 2132, Center School. 204, all units receiving Master Box 2132, Center School.
Mike, get me Boston Edison and the gas company.